Hi everyone, my name is Rubina A Khan, and welcome to the 10th edition of Rubina's Radar. New York, one of the most fashionable cities in the world, and America's top tourist destination. New York's fashion style and cultural cred attracted over 65 million travelers in 2019, adding over $70 billion into the American economy as revenues. But that's pre corona. Tonight, I'm in conversation with the Langham Hospitality Group's Regional Director of Public Relations, the Americas, and Director of Public Relations, the Langham, New York City, Fifth Avenue, and the Langham, Boston, Louise O'Brien, straight from New York. Everyone, please welcome Louise.
Hello.
Good morning, Louise.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's so nice to talk to you.
And thank you for spending the weekend with us in India.
Oh, I'm excited. I was just discussing this with one of my colleagues. My dream trip is India, and it's been on the list for a long time. And so I'm happy to virtually be in India until I can come see you guys again, travel again, so I can come see India for real. But it's very nice to connect with you. How are you?
I'm good. So I'm going to talk about the Langham, which, as you know, is one of the hotels I frequented a lot in New York. And I want to know, how did you stay open? Because you were one of the hotels that did not close through the pandemic, though the city was the epicenter of the pandemic last year. So what prompted that decision?
Initially, it was a very practical decision because we had some long stay guests. So a lot of times people will choose our hotel for reasons like it's longer than a vacation, but not quite moving to New York. So maybe they're relocating and they're waiting for their house to be done, or they have medical issues and they're coming to see our hospitals. And so we had some long stay guests, and they had nowhere to go. So we were the only luxury hotel open for a long time. Now a few others have reopened, but it did give us an opportunity to watch the city sort of evolve through the pandemic, and it gave us a chance for our brand to try out some of the new protocols. So thank goodness New York was open so that we could try out, how are we going to clean the rooms more efficiently and clean them in more in depth? Like, what protocol should we put in place? We were the first to have a lot of the temperature readers and the PPE stations and the hand washing stations around the hotel. So we were able to test all of that out for the rest of our hotels because we were open. So it's just easier to stay open.
So you were like the blueprint for the rest of the group.
In some ways, I mean, our head office is in Hong Kong, so they were really the blueprint for the rest of the group, because Hong Kong and China, obviously, as you know, suffered with the pandemic first, and so they were the first to go through it. And because we're a Hong Kong-based company, a lot of people who work for our company had been through SARS, and so there was already a lot of knowledge about how to deal with an epidemic or a pandemic. We just had to do it again and amplify it for this one, which was obviously so much more severe than SARS.
So obviously that must have worked out positively for the brand and the hotel in New York.
It did. I mean, it gave us an opportunity, as I said, to sort of test a lot of things out. I mean, sometimes we would only have 1 or 2 rooms occupied at the start of the pandemic, but there were people that needed somewhere to stay. People who worked in media, who worked in healthcare. They still needed to come to New York for whatever reason. And so it was good to be able to be of service to them and to allow our hotel to continue to operate. I should mention, we're also in a building. Our hotel takes up the first 27 floors of a building, and then above that is residences. So the building was operational whether or not we were open. So it made sense for us to stay open.
I think that was a great decision.
Yeah, no, it was. I think it did help. For me, selfishly, it helped me ease back into normal life faster than I think a lot of my friends who also work for hotels, because we were still working when everything was still going.
Yeah. So the Langham New York opened in 2013, and you joined the group around then. So, and how was your job? What's the marked difference between then, I mean, of course, there's a huge difference, but what do you see yourself going forward like as, leading the operations in the public relations? Because I can imagine it's hard.
It's hard, but it's really sort of the best job I've ever had. I mean, I've been with the company now since 2013, so 8 years, and that's the longest I've ever been at a company. So I must love it because I haven't gone anywhere. But the job, initially I interviewed for the regional job, the regional director of public relations, and was told, it's just temporarily if you could do New York. And then that ended up working out where, I was based out of the New York hotel anyway. And so it did give me, this was my first job working for a hotel. Everyone else I know at Langham, for the most part, came up in working in hotels. I'd always worked for public relations firms. I did a lot of destination work. I was in-house at a destination, but I didn't know how a hotel ran from the inside. So it ended up being a blessing that I got the second job, the second job added of being the PR director for New York, because I learned how a hotel runs. I mean, I can, if you needed me to, I probably could check you in at the front desk. I could probably deliver your room service because I know how the hotel runs now. And so that's been really rewarding, and I really enjoy it. Recently we've added Boston to my docket, which has been really exciting because we're opening it's a renovation, but it's such a massive renovation that it's almost
$150 million. That's
I know. I saw that in the news. I didn't know that number until it got released by a newspaper. It's a lot of money. So it's a massive renovation of a historic hotel. So it's that I'm doing sort of from New York, which is a little complicated because I'm not in Boston, but I will be in Boston a bit more when we open that hotel. And again, it's so exciting to get to be part of the granular sort of reopening a hotel. So my job changed almost the minute I got it because they added this property level work. But the industry of public relations has changed so much in 8 years. Yes. It changes every year, but it's changed so much in 8 years because the media landscape has changed so much. I mean, there's more of a focus on social media and digital, and the way the media covers travel has changed. So many things have changed in the 8 years. I'm glad you love the Langham. I love the Langham. I'm glad you love the Langham. I love the Langham London too. It will reopen soon. That
was a $150 million renovation. So whilst we're on it, let's just talk about, it was the Federal Bank of Boston in 1922.
Yeah, so you did really good research, by the way.
Isn't it ironic that a place and a building that was a bank now takes in so much money to come back to play?
I know. That is an interesting way of looking at it. It hasn't been a bank since 1980 or 81. Another hotel company ran it initially, and we took it over, I want to say in 2004. And we never renovated it. So there's so many elements that the other hotel company sort of put over the banking history that in the process of renovating it, we're discovering all of these like amazing architectural elements that were put in by the bank in 1922. Right. We happen to know one gentleman who was the chief operating officer of the bank and worked at the Langham building before they moved the bank to another location. So he's been really great because he walks us through and he's like, that's where the bank president sat and that fireplace never worked. And so we had to move. And like, he has all these great anecdotes, but it is interesting that it used to be a bank. And if you see it from the outside, you can tell it used to be a bank. I mean, it's like a fortress. It's such a big.
And it is also in the financial district. So it is, yeah. It's a composite whole of a banking kind,
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not.
No.
Yeah.
We keep looking for money. Like we were joking around that, like we hope we find like a gold bar somewhere, but no.
Any smugglers in residence?
No. I wish we could find something. But no, there's no money so far.
I think the IRS would have looked before you did.
I'm sure other people looked before us. Yeah.
Yeah. So, how did you keep the Langham hashtags, loving Langham and celebrate the everyday, working in that time when panic and fear was, paramount amongst people? How does one then try to celebrate anything? So, how did you keep that alive?
I'll be honest with you, we took a break from Celebrate the Everyday initially at the beginning of the pandemic and from Loving Langham because we initially, when the pandemic first sort of started, which was a year ago, I can't believe a year ago, like this week, our intent was only to comfort. So we actually embraced another hashtag during that time, which was In the Pink. Our signature color, as you know, is pink. And, your friends who've been to the Langham London have probably seen we have pink everywhere. And the color pink really does symbolize health and happiness and love, all the good things. So we created a hashtag In the Pink, asking people to show us their moments of being in the pink from wherever they were. And we did the same, like, pictures of New York and London and us and Sydney and all the places we have hotels to say, we're with you, we're thinking of you until we can see you again. And we kept with that for a while because we didn't feel right trying to convince people to travel or even for future. I mean, I think everybody felt that way. Like at the beginning, especially for the first, I'd say 3 to 6 months, we really just wanted to make sure people felt comfortable where they were. So we did some virtual celebrations. We actually threw the 155th anniversary of the Langham London was in June, and we threw a 24-hour, we're never going to do this again, a 24-hour party, which God bless our team in Hong Kong. I mean, they literally stayed up for 24 hours, where we had live streams from all of our hotels around the world.
Wow.
We showed people how to we shared the recipe for our turn down cookies and how to make the cocktails at Artesian at the Langham London and how to do your own Schwan facial at home. So it was a lot of that in that first 3 to 6 months, because I think we came to understand really quickly that we're hospitality professionals, but hospitality has nothing to do with a hotel. It has to do with how you take care of people. And so we took care of people the best we could virtually. And we only brought back Celebrate the Everyday and Loving Langham, I'd say 6 to 8 months into it, because we started talking about when we could celebrate again. As things started to look more manageable, as we knew vaccines were coming, as we felt like people were ready to hear from us on that front again. But there's always a good reason to celebrate, and hopefully 2021 for everybody is the year that we celebrate all the things we missed in 2020. So that's the plan now.
Yeah. So what do you think is the most fashionable aspect of the Langham, New York? Not just the sweet views of, the Empire State Building and your beautiful penthouse. What do you think is the most fashionable aspect of the hotel in today's time?
It's the guests. Usually, I'll be honest with you.
Wonderful.
I mean, I feel like people, it's funny, if you stand in our lobby for any length of time, especially during a typical check-in period, you see people in just all different versions of travel wear. And I'm always amazed at how fashionable people look when they just got off a plane or just got out of a car. But it's probably our guests. I mean, there's definitely little touches throughout the hotel that are a nod to the fact that we're in we're about, I feel 2 blocks east of what was traditionally the garment district or the fashion district of New York. And so we do have in our penthouse, we have Hermes scarves framed as art, and we have lots of Paul Smith curtains and Hermes pillows, and we really do have little fashion touches throughout the hotel. But for me, the most fashionable part of New York is always street fashion and seeing what people look like when they don't think anyone's looking. I just New York just oozes fashion just walking down Fifth Avenue.
That is so true. So I find that all the new things that are happening in the group and in New York are very ingenious. The Essential Langham wedding, you partnered with photographers, you had everything inside the hotel. And of course you can, because your rooms are the largest in New York City at 1,900 square feet. So it must have been easier to do social distancing and weddings and, keeping the new norms of behavior or socially acceptable. I think it's more legally acceptable behavior. And also the first dog wedding that Langham Sydney had.
Yeah.
Your ambassador dog, Muppy Puppy, with his girlfriend Boomer. I mean, there's so many ingenious things you guys are doing. So how do you all come up with these new things in this new world to get your patrons back, to feel safe? And to have fun, most importantly.
Yeah, to have, I mean, the fun part, I mean, working at a hotel, even though we're living through a time where hotels are really tourism is really suffering. Um, Working in a hotel is really fun. At the end of the day, we do get to do fun things with people. A lot of it is really just paying attention to what we know is going on in the world. And so our team at the Langham Sydney, who are just some of the most creative people I've ever met, they were paying attention and saw that, like, the number of Australians that had adopted dogs during the pandemic, and what better time than to have become a dog friendly hotel and welcome a doggy wedding. I mean, what can be more cute than that? And so I think that was really just paying attention to what the market is talking about. And in New York, we realized it was funny, when you asked what it was like staying open, we noticed that there were a lot of people coming to the hotel, checking in and telling us, oh, I just got married. The pandemic, we couldn't have our wedding, so we just got married by Zoom, but we still wanted to have like a wedding night. And we weren't marketing to that. And so I realized that there were people who were not going to put off the biggest day of their lives because of a pandemic. And so we put together something to make it easier for them. Then we decided to give one away. And obviously we decided to give it to an essential worker, somebody who was on the front lines. And that was just incredible and rewarding and so much fun. And I thank all of our partners because they really did, the photographer and the officiant and the flowers, like it was all donated by partners who were just like, yeah, let's do this. Let's find a reason to celebrate. And
Wonderful.
It was a wonderful experience. But yeah, we were reacting to what the market was telling us it needed. And
so you were listening. You were listening. More than telling the customer, this is what we have. You said, what do you want?
Yeah, you always do find that sometimes when you just come up with something because you think it's fun, it sometimes can work, but sometimes customers will tell you, like, that's not what I was asking for. And so you sometimes do just have to listen. And I think that's one of the other benefits of the fact that I'm based at the hotel is I was talking to our front desk who told me, I was like, so who's here today? Like, what's going on? And they were like, well, there's two people here, two different couples who got married by a judge by Zoom, and they're both having their wedding night here. And I was like, oh, who would have guessed that that's something we should be thinking about? But now we are. So yeah, so it's listening to what people tell you about their experience. Right. People are very chatty, especially. They love to tell you if they like it or they don't like it. Thank God.
So sorry, pardon me. So the Langham Nymphenburg, opened last year in Munich. It was this 18th century manor that was renovated for 2 years. And I want to understand, why would you partner with a porcelain company, which is the only company, I have to read the name properly, it's Porzellan Manufacturer Nymphenburg, which is the last company in the world to make hand porcelain by hand.
Yeah.
So what brought about sort of a bespoke artistic residence in Germany?
Yeah. Our CEO is German. So I should point out, there's always a person. What I love about our company is there's almost always a personal story that someone was inspired and brought it to the company. We're a small enough company that one person being inspired can actually have an impact, because we're small enough that we all know each other. We all work really closely with each other. So our CEO is from Bavaria, which is close to where Nymphenburg, the region that Nymphenburg is in. And he knew about this property and had this idea that it would make an interesting addition to our portfolio, because it isn't exactly a hotel. It's a 4-bedroom house. It's an 18th century manor, as you said. It's on the grounds of the porcelain company and the palace, the palace that's associated with that region of Germany. And it has the services of a hotel, but it looks like a home. And he just thought it was clever and fun, and wouldn't it be great? All this porcelain will be there.
Yeah.
He believes that hospitality is an art form, and isn't it great that we're partnering with something else that's an art form? And then the pandemic happened, And suddenly the concept of having a private residence all to yourself in the luxury sphere became more important. So we looked like we were geniuses that we opened a private residence during
Ahead
the
of the
pandemic.
curve.
But we were already doing it. We just liked it. And now it's like, it's become something that's much easier to sell because there are a lot of luxury guests in Europe and hopefully from the Middle East and India when they start coming back to Europe who are interested in having like a private experience. So I think this is going to end up being something that will be like a subset of the Langham brand where we're going to have more luxury residences with hotel services in interesting places around the world. But this is the first one.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting.
Yeah, it should be
And
really
it intrigued me when I heard about it. So glad to know about how it came about. So the other thing I was interested to know is that, you know, the first Langham hotel in the world opened in London in 1865. And that was the concept unknown because it was a high rise of some 10 floors. With a high rise of 10 floors sounds like insane.
I know.
And it had the world's first hydraulic lifts, which were called the rising rooms. So from then, you've really risen into the skyscraping worlds. You know, you shooting up hotels everywhere. There's so many grand plans. And I also researched that none of your hotels are behind in the opening, like in the sense that only the last year, whatever was scheduled has just gone forward. There's been no canning of any projects. So I would think that the group is doing well.
Yeah, we are. I mean, I think we are too. You know, we're not unrealistic in ambitions. Like I feel like our CEO is a really great leader, Stefan Lacer. He's very smart and very pragmatic about the execution of like development. So it's not, he doesn't make a lot of grand plans of like, we're going to have 100 new hotels. You know, that's not who we are. We're a luxury brand. We look very carefully at where we want to be next. And, you know, we're continuing to do that. We were delayed a bit by COVID, the same as everyone else. So like the Langham Boston was delayed a few months based on COVID, but yeah, no, everything is moving forward that we had planned. Yeah. Anything that was signed and sealed is continued to move forward. And so it is a very exciting year of recovery for us. As the industry recovers, we're recovering. And we do have, you know, new things to talk about, which I feel very blessed that we have that we're not just stagnant because it
lots
could
of
come different ways. Yeah.
So you obviously art is a fulcrum point and focal point in your hotel group. You have 17 Alex Katz originals in the Langham, New York.
We have 11, but thank you for making it a bigger collection.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I got the number wrong.
But we have 11.
I think you have some prints, so I sort of calculated.
We do have a lot. You know, you're right. We have a lot of prints as well, but we have 11 originals.
Originals and prints, yes.
Yeah, we have a lot of prints as well.
So, and also the Langham Chicago made some cocktails inspired by a ceramic artist called Nancy Perry. So I want to know how do you guys sit together and then come up with these kind of artistic collaborations? I understood the Nymphenburg, which is the CEO's vision, but on a sort of you know, your level, how do you go forward with collaborations with artists? Who makes the cut and how?
Right. That's a good question. So the Alex Katz collection is a permanent part of the building. So that was chosen by the chairman of our company when we opened the Langham in 2013. And all of our art collections are that. So the art in the hotel is permanent, and we don't have like rotating art collections. That all stays the same. But because our brand is so focused on promoting art and making art part of the luxury experience at the Langham, we often partner with artistic collaborators in each market. The collaboration in Chicago was the brainchild of the head bartender and the director of public relations, who knew that we were going to, you know, the world is going towards everything being delivery and to go. And how are we going to bring that amazing bar experience at Travell at the Langham to people? And bottled cocktails came up. Could we make bottled cocktails? And then there was a relationship with a local artist, and she created the bottles, and the purchase of them benefits charities. They pick charities, environmental and you know, human rights charities in Chicago. And you know, it's just it just makes sense for us because we are so committed to promoting art. But how someone makes the cut, that's a really good question. I mean, I think it's really, again, just sort of staying in tune with each of our markets. And in every market, our PR directors, thank goodness, are all really excited about finding new partners. So like in Sydney, they have like a performance series in the lobby, and it's because the PR director and the marketing director found local performers to do that with. And I think that's an important part of what we do. More important now because we're trying to boost our communities more than ever, but just trying to find people that make sense for our brand, that live in our market, so that we can do these kind of fun collaborations.
Right. That's good to know. So how does a luxury hotel like the Langham, New York, extend the luxurious experience beyond the expected today?
That's a really good question. It really does come down to, our CEO always uses this phrase that what we used to be called high touch, now in the pandemic we call high care. And I think from the beginning of your stay, even before you arrive, there's pre-arrival communications where we try to make sure that when you get there, we have the best stay possible set up for you. And that means also in this day and age, clarifying what the protocols are. You know, like you're going to have your temperature taken. You're going to have to bring a COVID test, what have you. And then also letting you know what the city you're coming to looks like now. You know, like up until recently, we didn't have indoor dining, and you know, so we had to tell people that. So, but what we do try to do, you know, I think what I love about Langham and what I love about working here is, whether you're the president of a country or just somebody who booked a stay on our website because you saw a pretty picture of the hotel, we give you just as much of a tailored experience, because I think the idea is that, you know, everybody is a VIP when you come through the front door of the Langham. And so, you know, every hotel has their own little touches, and you know, with COVID, we've had to eliminate some of them, but where we can, we still, you know, try to make sure that there's a personal note from our GM waiting for you in the room when you get there, with an amenity or something special to let you know that we understand why you're visiting, and we want to make it the best possible version that we can. That's kind of a general answer, Rubina. I'm sorry, but
No, I know. But it is. I sense that it must be on the spot decisions to a particular customer, that you would say, okay, I sense this person is seeking this, so let's do that. I don't think it's a standard protocol procedure. We
try not to be too scripted. I mean, we try really hard to be a real human experience. Yeah. There's also we're lucky enough to work for a company where all of us are empowered to make a split-second decision. If I have to do this, let's say upgrade somebody or give them free breakfast or whatever, to make this a better experience for them, even if, like, let's say the bad experience they had is that their flight was delayed and their, you know, car didn't come, that's not our fault. But if we can still do something to, like, turn their smile, you know, around, we're all empowered to do that. From our front desk to our housekeepers to everybody is empowered to make those kinds of split-second decisions. And I think it's important. I think guests notice that, you know, you can say, well, I'll make this a little bit better for you right now if I can.
I think that's really a great way forward.
Yes.
Especially now. Especially people are going to be very sensitive about very small things, you know.
It's true. It's true. And for good reason. I mean, right now, I mean, I think you're spending so much time at the airport if you do travel, right? Because and you're doing.
I only know. I haven't been.
Me neither. Me neither.
It sounds like a nightmare.
It's more of a process now to go somewhere than it ever has been. And so, of course, you should be asking your hotel more questions, and you should be asking for more things to make you feel more comfortable, because it's up to us to do that. And we won't know until you tell us, you know, what you need. And then, you know, we got to make sure that you get it.
Yeah. Like my next question is that, have you got any new requests of luxury? Like, I see that you have a package which is work in and work out package, in which you give an additional room, and then the person can work and work out in it.
Right.
With the gym, and you install everything that they need. So is it because the customer asked for it, or you preempted it, and then there's washing and laundry. Or what's that called? Washing machine. Sorry,
Yeah.
washing machine and dryers in the suites.
Yeah.
So do these amenities now come from the customers requesting you, or do you think you saw that coming?
Yeah, so our fitness center up until recently was closed because the city of New York said you couldn't have a fitness center, and that was for a long time. And so we did know that there were people who were asking if we could bring fitness equipment to their room. And some of the fitness equipment is really difficult to bring, like a bike or an elliptical machine is difficult to bring. And so we decided to set up some separate rooms with those things. So we took the bed out and put in a bike, elliptical machine, and mats, and like all the things you need, kettlebells, whatever you need. And then we sort of kept adding to it. We're like, well, let's put in a blender with some things to make your own smoothie, and let's put this, like, let's make it as great as we can, so that if somebody does want to book this, they do feel like they're having an actual gym experience. Since then, our gym has reopened under the new protocols. We're following all the standards and protocols, but we kept the rooms because there are people who are more comfortable because they've been working out at home all pandemic. Yeah. They're comfortable staying that way. And so, yeah, that was just us listening to guests. It's also an example of, it's something we would do for, I don't know, a celebrity staying with us even prior to the pandemic, because they like lots of privacy. And we thought, well, everybody would like that. Who wouldn't like their own little gym room?
I love that.
Yeah, so that's sort of how that came about. But yeah, in terms of new requests, interestingly, we haven't had that many. There were some that we were like prepared for. So we trained everybody, for instance, on how to do drop off room service, because we're anticipating no one's going to want us to come into their room and push the tray in. Right. And so we would give people that option. Would you prefer that everything's the same as when you get food delivery? Like, do you prefer that you don't come in? And almost everyone said, no, just come in. And so there were some things we were surprised by. We also gave people the option of, you don't have to have room service, housekeeping the whole time. And almost everybody was like, no, they should clean it. That's fine. So there were some things that we were anticipating people were going to say they didn't want, or they wanted done differently. And it turned out they didn't. So we can do those things. But most of the time we don't do it.
This question just popped in my head. Mm-hmm. Is that, do you have socially distanced rooms? Like, do you have blocked out rooms? Like, so there is distance between occupants.
So there's distance between you and the other guests. And there's also time during which we turn over the room. So like, if you check out, we won't check anyone back into that room. I think it's 48 hours, because we disinfect it with the electrostatic cleaner. And that gives it enough time after we've cleaned it and disinfected it for another person to ever check in. Mm-hmm. The only time there's like a lot of people on the same floor right now is if they're traveling within a bubble. So we had a sports team staying with us. They travel within their bubble. And so they needed to be on the same floor because they don't want to be around anyone else but each other. So that's the only time. But yeah, usually there's space between you and, I think there's like at least probably we have the luxury of there being like probably like 2 rooms between you and anyone else.
Right. So obviously I'm assuming it's not full occupancy at any point.
No one in New York has full occupancy right now. I think most hotels, where most hotels sit, which is like between 10 and 30%, depending on the week.
Hmm. So with no international tourists and business travelers, no New York Fashion Week, a very quiet Times Square, which is surreal. I mean, the picture spoke to me in the beginning.
I know.
And is the business entirely driven by domestic tourists and travelers?
Pretty much, yeah.
100%? You would say 100%?
I'd say like 95%. There's like a couple of there was somebody who was like a student from overseas who was a student at NYU who stayed with us. He went through all the necessary quarantining thing. But for them, I'd say like 99% it's domestic. And it's interestingly, all from New York. So most of our guests right now are from New York or the neighboring states, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, which has never been the case for us before. We've always had a large domestic presence, but I mean, there were guests from California and Florida, and that's less so right now. It's mostly people who can drive to the hotel. And New York is coming back alive, but no, it's nothing like when you were here last. Like, it is weird to see Times Square not so full. I'm told that Broadway is coming back.
Yes, in September, I hear.
Yeah, probably by September. And I think that will make a big impact on that particular part of town. Because even if you don't come to New York to go to a Broadway play, it's nice to know they're there, and it adds like a certain element to the city. But New York is coming back alive. What we've noticed is that New Yorkers, New Jersey, Connecticut residents, they're taking advantage of the fact that the city is not quite as crowded and coming in and going to the Museum of Modern Art and going to the Empire State Building. And that's to rediscover your city as if you're a tourist. That's
right.
Pretty
fun. Yeah. So in April, I believe you're allowed to have about 33% capacity, about 100 people. So will the Langham start taking in events?
Yeah.
Do you think that's a possibility that you will start? Do you think people are not fearful as much now to have like 100 people around them?
I think people still are fearful to have 100 people around them right now, but we're getting vaccinated at a pretty good clip here in New York City, and the powers that be that have been distributing the vaccines in New York have been doing so in a very, very well-paced fashion. And so I think people are starting to feel more confident because they're pretty sure that some of the people around them have been vaccinated or are about to be vaccinated. So it's getting a lot better. I don't see huge events coming back right away. I feel like it's going to take another 6 months or something before people start thinking about that. But we are ready to take events, whatever the legal parameters are, we're ready to take them at the Langham, New York. We have a great catering team that are really excited to promote weddings and things like that. But I think that smaller, more intimate events are going to be the norm for a while.
Yeah, that's what I thought, that people will choose that over larger crowds. So how's your Michelin restaurant ifiori doing? I mean, I love the Mediterranean food, but it has been shut for a long time. So now I believe indoor dining will start on March 19th.
Well, it's back. So so they were open. They were closed until like November or something. Then they opened because indoor dining came back, and then they had to close again. And so they reopened, I think a week and a half ago, for end of February, with the 25% capacity for indoor dining. As of March 19th, it's up to 50%. So that's a big deal for them. But they were telling me that this reopening, compared to the one in the winter, has been more successful. That there's more people really excited to go out to see each other. Everybody they did socially distanced. You've been to ifiori, so you know it's quite large.
Very
so doing the social
breakfast place is very large.
It is. It is.
Beautiful.
Right now they're only open for dinner, so they're not open for breakfast at the moment, but it is quite large, and they can do socially distanced pretty well because it's so large. And so they've made it really beautiful and made it feel like I think what's great about going to a place like ifiori is those of us who live in New York who used to go out all the time, now going out is like a bigger deal. Like, we make a bigger deal out of it. So we are going to go someplace like ifiori where, it looks like this amazing, fancy night out, because you do want your one night out.
Yeah.
Really fancy. Yeah. But yeah, no, they're doing okay.
And also you feel safer within the confines of a place that is, maintaining the protocol. So I think when you do want to spend, you want to feel safe and celebrate.
Yeah.
It's a tandem drive, right?
It's true. It's true. You do want to feel safe. And I feel like there's people are really very eager to return to some version of normal and to, like I said, to celebrate things again. So I'm happy that ifiori is doing well with the new restrictions, and their bar is actually, you can't sit at the bar in New York right now. You can't sit at any bar. So the bartender at ifiori is actually doing to-go cocktails that you can get delivered, or we can have them sent up to your room. So I think they're being really inventive with the restrictions, and
I think bottle drinking sent up to the room is going to escalate business for the brand. I think
yeah,
it's going to be fun.
yeah. No, I mean
Because
everybody's
you're in
doing
bed drinking. You're in bed drinking.
I know,
There's no control.
but it isn't like the reason I love the bottled cocktail trend is because what I hated about the pandemic, I don't really drink very much at all, but when I do, I really prefer when someone else makes it. So I love the bottled cocktail trend because I don't have to actually make my own martini. Like it's in a bottle. I can just drink that one. That's way easier. So
I
I
love
hope
the
that
names. I love the cool names you guys are coming up with. The Billie Eilish song is the cocktail of Chicago.
yeah,
In a town.
yeah.
I mean,
They were really
love the energy of what's happening in the group.
Yeah, their bartender, a guy called Slava Borisov, he's so talented and he's so good at coming up with names for drinks. Like he does a really good job. I thought those were really clever names as well.
Yes, yes. So, tell me, since your job is larger, looking after the larger image of the hotel group, what kind of social media strategies are working for the hotel? Because I can see that whatever you guys are doing is working and getting you the numbers and the customers, which is very hard.
Yeah, we have a wonderful woman at our head office, Melody, Melody Bow, who is in charge of our overall sort of social media voice. And she's very hands-on, and she's young and vibrant and knows all the things to help us be, I think, as relevant as possible on social media. Our strategy really is we do like for our social media feeds to be a combination of, here we're trying to sell you a room, but here's something beautiful about where we are, because we are lucky enough to be in some of the most exciting cities in the world that people dream about visiting, Sydney and London and Hong Kong and New York. And so we like to show off New York just as much as we like to show off the hotel. And so I do think that that's a benefit to our followers, because some of them can't get to New York right now, so that at least they can see.
I'm one of them.
In Central Park, yeah, they can. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Until you can come back and see us again, we do want to make sure that you can see not just how beautiful our hotel is, but about New York, because Melody and her team have been smart enough to also guide us in the direction of, yes, social media is a sales tool, but we sell more than a product. We sell an experience. And, part of it is really just keeping people excited about the possibility of traveling and seeing us again. So our strategy, that's sort of our strategy in the broad strokes. And then we work with influencers, and we work with local photographers and things like that to help do that.
Yeah, coming on to the influencer part, I mean, you're quite vocal about certain influencers demanding complimentary stays at your hotel. Please tell us about some of the most unpleasant ones in the recent past. There was some man who was only posting nudes.
Oh,
things like that.
Nice, actually. He was so polite about it when I told him why we. So I usually, because you and I are friends on Facebook, is why you see those things. But yes. Most of the time, if the only things I complain about are like the really, who is that kind of crazy example? For the most part, we have like these amazing influencers who all behave beautifully.
Yeah.
So influencers for the most part are really pleasant to work with. We have a coterie of ones that we have worked with for various hotels around the country, and we share that knowledge with each other. So we know all these great influencers and have wonderful relationships with them, and it's a great transactional relationship because they understand we're looking to them to help promote something, and this is what they're getting in exchange, and it goes off beautifully. But every once in a while, you get a crazy person, and they're funny too, because you do wonder. Somebody who posts nothing but pictures of himself naked, why would a luxury hotel host you? Like, what would make you think that's... Okay. And he was very understanding, because I initially just said no, and then he asked me why, and I was like, well, I'll be honest with you, like, we can't share a photo of you naked and he was very understanding, so it went off just fine. For the most part, I find anyone who has an over-the-top crazy request isn't a very isn't a very serious influencer. They're probably just someone looking to get over. I also find there's been a lot of articles written recently about nano influencers and micro influencers, and I think they're really important.
Yes.
Sometimes someone can have 8 million followers, but their 8 million followers are never going to book a room at your hotel, because what they're really interested in is that influencer and what she does. And yes, they're going to be excited to see where she goes, but they're more interested in like her beauty routine or her fashion. And sometimes those 8 million followers are really not useful. Whereas somebody else might have 5,000 followers, and those 5,000 followers do everything that person does, because it's such a specific group.
Incredible.
Yeah. So, it really does depend. But for the most part, the crazy stories are few and far between, and that's why I laugh about them.
And the secret celebrity requests. People just call and say, "Oh, it's for a celebrity," and you never know who it is.
You want to know the secret? Celebrities, real celebrities, they pay for their room.
Oh wow, that's so fun to know.
So like
your hotel never talks about your celebrity.
We don't.
We never talk about
never. We never. And the reason we don't is because they have, for us, like, it's not pleasant for them to have to worry about their own safety, right? Like, they're, especially a big star, like, they have enough to worry about. Yes. Sometimes people find out that they're staying with us, and we do our best to protect them, but it never comes from us. I've never called the Paps or anything about a famous pop star. Like, we just don't do that. So we give them their privacy, because they deserve to be able to relax and rest in their room the same as anyone else. But truth be told, like, celebrities for the most part just pay for their rooms because they want.
That's the thing I'm stuck with, that they pay.
Yeah, so it's funny whenever someone calls me to tell me that they represent a celebrity and the celebrity wants a free room. It's not like we've never done that. We'll do it if it's mutually beneficial, but it's always funny to me because I'm like, yeah. Okay.
So what's the biggest paradigm shift in your job in today's times, in PR particularly? I mean, I'm sure there's been a little bit of a shift from before to now. And I mean pre-corona, not before.
Pre-corona?
Mm-hmm.
I think even pre-corona, for sure, PR and marketing became more symbiotic than ever before. I think there was always like a delineation of, like, I do public relations, this other person does marketing, this other person does e-commerce, and those things need to work together, because otherwise you don't end up having a clear message. Everything needs to be 360. Everything needs to dovetail within each other. You can't be siloed, and that's more pronounced now that the pandemic has made everything all the time. We're all doing like 12 different jobs because that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But even pre-pandemic, I feel like we really needed to work closely together. And so the biggest paradigm shift for me has been how often I end up thinking about B2C communications and trying to talk directly to consumers more so than I ever did before in my career.
So it's more a human experience that you're going to be looking forward to.
Yeah.
So now let's come to you, as in Louise the person.
Oh.
So how has working at home been, and what have you been wearing? COVID pajamas?
No, I don't. It's funny. I don't wear sweatpants or pajamas. I usually get dressed today.
Are you the only person in the world?
I think I might be. I might be the only person. So we have a morning call with our whole team in New York, and then I have a weekly call with Boston. Like, I usually wake up having a call with people on Zoom, and so I usually wake up and like actually put on clothes and makeup and try to look like a normal person. I mean, it's definitely more pared down than when I was going to the hotel every day, but not so much so. Sorry, I'm lifting you so that I can make this better. Sorry about that. So yeah, that I don't wear COVID pajamas. They do look really comfortable though, and maybe I should invest in some, but maybe I'm too late to get in on that trend.
I think you're carrying a Kardashian vibe. You like them, and they don't wear the pajamas. None of them are.
No,
and if they do, they only wear their own brand, which is Skips.
Yeah, yeah. you keep seeing Instagram ads for these beautiful, luxurious pajamas, and I keep thinking maybe I should invest in some. But I definitely I don't wear like a suit like I did when I go, like I do when I go to the hotel, because I still go to the hotel like 2 or 3 days a week. But when I'm home, I am wearing like real pants right now. Like I'm not wearing like these are actual trousers and not like pajama pants. So yeah, I normally try to, because also for me, working from home is very comfortable. It's nice to have, my cat and like feel like you're comfortable. But at the same time, I need there to be like a structure to the day.
Yes.
So that I also know, take off your jeans and your normal clothes and put on your pajamas to end your day, as opposed to everything just sort of blends together. That wouldn't work for me.
Mm-hmm. So what's the first thing you do in the morning and the last thing at night?
The first thing I do in the morning usually is go to the gym, which is so boring.
Wow.
But I go to the gym very early. I'm a member of a local fitness thing called Orange Theory, which is like HIIT training. And I go usually at 6 a.m. I have a training. And then the last thing I do at night, I'm embarrassed to say, is probably check my phone, but I think most people do that. I do try to read every night, like a book. I try to read something having nothing to do with work before I go to sleep, like a novel or a book, a history book, something that has nothing to do with what I do all day. Just because I feel like we're all getting to the point where we live on a screen, and maybe our attention span is suffering because of that. So I try really hard to read a book at some point when I'm like winding down.
What's the book you're reading now?
I'm reading The Alienist, which is a novel by Caleb Carr, and it's old. Like I should have read it years ago, but I love it because I am actually, even though I'm from New York, I'm fascinated by the history of New York.
Yes.
And this was written about, it's supposed to be set in like 1860 something, and like it's a murder mystery, but like reading where they are in the city and what it must have looked like in the 1800s, for some reason I find it really fascinating. So it's a really good book. It's been out for several years though. It's not a new book.
Right. So how do you think New York has changed? What do you like most about the city now? It's your city. So what do you love most about it?
I do like that people are coming together again. I feel like people are really trying to support each other. I don't mind that there's a lack of crowds, but I do miss our friends from overseas, because I did used to like knowing that like the person next to me could be visiting from India or could be visiting from so far away, and they're here with us now. So we miss our tourists, even though we used to complain that the tourists made everything crowded. Now I miss them.
Yeah.
But what I do like, New Yorkers are tough. New York is a strong city, and we're trying really hard to continue to stay that way. And so I do like that there's so many people really out there getting that message out that New York is still here. And, we got rid of some of the people who decided that New York wasn't for them, and the ones who stayed, we're going to make it better so that when you all can come back and visit us again, it'll be as exciting as you remember it, I hope.
Yes, I hope so too. It's almost fearful to imagine it live, like what it was, and it's never going to be the same. Nothing is ever going to be the same.
No, but that's life.
So that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
it's
okay.
Evolving, so
yeah.
It's an initial shock, and then you glide right in.
Yeah, I mean I always tell people that. Like I'm so old. I've lived here my whole life. I'm in my 40s, and so I remember September 11th, and I remember what it was like after that. And if you'd ever told anybody before September 11th that they would get to an airport 2.5 hours early, take their shoes off to get on the plane, like they would have told you were crazy. Right. And we adjusted, and we do that now, and we don't even think about it. And it did feel after September 11th like New York would never be the same, and it is. It's not the same. It's different, but we are all still here, and we're still making it work. So we'll come out of this different. I mean, we definitely, in a lot of ways, we're not going to feel like we're as strong as we were, but we're going to come out of this different, but we're going to come out of this.
Yeah. So what are some of the things you could never do in the city because it was obviously full of people, but you can now? Have you done something that you didn't do for years?
Yeah, I went on the High Line. The High Line is that elevated park on the west side that was always so crowded.
The Standard High Line.
Near the Standard Hotel. So the High Line runs like 2 miles or something on the west side. It goes from like the 30s all the way down to Gansevoort Street to the Whitney. And it's so much less crowded now that you can actually stop and look at all the plants and take pictures. Whereas before, if you went during a prime period of time, it was like the slowest moving, like mass of people. I haven't been to the Museum of Modern Art yet, but my friend who went was saying that, the Museum of Modern Art has Van Gogh's Starry Night. And normally it's like going to see the Mona Lisa at the Louvre. Like you can't get close enough to actually see it because there's so many people.
Yeah.
And now because of the restrictions and like less people, the museum only lets a certain number of people in at a time. You can go and sit on the bench in front of Starry Night and actually look at it. And so that's my next thing is I'm going to make a day to go into and go into MoMA because there's a lot of pieces there that I've never seen without a crowd around them. And I'd like to see them like close up. So
before the summer.
Yeah, I think the summer will be. You're right. I should do it soon, actually.
And send pictures.
I will. I'll put pictures. I definitely will.
So, when do you think New York will be open for business entirely? The city, not just the Langham Group.
You mean for international travel?
Yes, all kinds of things that have stalled. Businesses.
I think
fashion.
I'm hopeful that when our president starts to allow international travel, and our governors and everybody start to allow international travel, and that New York will be high on their list. We do benefit from the fact that you kind of have to fly through New York to go almost anywhere. So I'm hopeful that by the end of this year, that will be something that would be real. That this Christmas season, we will actually have some tourists in Times Square and at the Rockefeller Tree. So that's my hope. But I've learned not to really make predictions because who knows? I mean, nobody made the right predictions throughout this whole thing. So
oh yeah, I don't know what the astrologers and soothsayers were doing. I mean, really, what were they so busy with? No one saw this coming. No,
it's true. It's true. And apparently, Bill Gates saw it coming, but no one else.
Yeah, but he's not a soothsayer. Everyone's looking at the horoscopes, and
it's true. Yeah,
another level of predictions. Because India is very traditional with astrology. So I was wondering who didn't see this? No one saw this. Like everyone's wedding is based on astrology.
That's true.
Cricketers' lives and their contracts depend on astrology. Yeah. Film stars, opening films, whatever it is you have, is all dependent on numbers and astrology.
Oh wow! So,
So no one saw that coming. So I was like, yeah, whatever. So do you have a favorite Langham?
I never was supposed to answer this because I'm sure I'm supposed to say New York, and it is because that's my home. But I'll be honest with you, the hotel that always has a special place in my heart is the Langham in Shanghai. Because when I first started working for Langham, they sent me to China for ILTM, which is like a big travel industry conference that has a version in Shanghai. And then I went to Hong Kong after that. And the Langham in Shanghai, I never get sick. I just don't. And so I never have medicine with me. I just never think of that. And I got to Shanghai and I was deathly sick, just like the worst cold ever. And everyone in that hotel tried to cure my cold. And I will never forget that. Like they didn't know me. I was brand new. But literally, I remember coming in one day and one of the doormen was like, I left you some tea in your room that my grandmother swears by, and I think it will fix it. And I was sort of just like, so I think because I just was unexpected. I think I was expecting everyone in China because people in China wear masks all the time prior to the pandemic. That's very common. So I was expecting people to see that I was sick and to stay away from me. And that's the opposite of what they did. They all tried to take care of me. And so I've always had a soft spot for the Langham Shanghai for that reason. It's also a beautiful hotel. It's really, really pretty. And it's in a beautiful part of town. But that will always be my favorite.
I'm sorry to cut you there, but I think Instagram is going to cut us off. There's 9 seconds remaining. So I'm going to say thank you. I still have 3 questions, but I don't know how to do that, but that's okay. So thank you, Louise.